I literally started praying this morning, and I hadn't even got any very far into the Lord's Prayer, and the word completeness came immediately to mind. And it's one of those words that I wasn't really expecting. It didn't seem relevant particularly, although it wasn't too bad a word. But anyway, I've left it there during the day. So completeness, is it coming? Is it here? What are we going to do about it? Welcome, it's Transformation Sheffield. It's the 27th of June 2022. Whether you're watching live or later on, you're very welcome to join us here. Quite difficult to break in on an evening like this because the presence of God has been really strong tonight as we've been soaking with the music from the Riveras. Earlier on, we played their latest album that only came out about 4 weeks ago, which is just called Freedom. And there's just something very special, as there is for most of their music. So if you've got Spotify, it's on there, but also they often put the whole albums on YouTube. So go and look them up, Alberto and Kimberly Rivera, and you can also contribute to them. That is their ministry. They create soaking music, if you've not come across them before. So completeness. Well, we definitely don't live in a complete society, and you'll see behind me this scrolling image of a jigsaw, and that's what came to me today, that actually there's something about completing a jigsaw, that completeness that you get with a jigsaw that is very fulfilling, really. But at the same time, from a Christian point of view, where can we see completeness of all the pieces of the jigsaw there? And you know that jumbled start at the beginning of making a jigsaw when they're all the wrong way up and pieces seem to be in the wrong place. If you've ever bought a second-hand jigsaw, you've got that fear that there's going to be some pieces missing. But I think what God was showing me during the day is that actually He's putting all the pieces in place. And the difficulty we've got is, how do we find all the pieces and pull them all together? And how do them, the most important part is, how do we act upon it? Some people of you will know that there's various numbers in the Bible and they have spiritual meanings. And number 7 is the number of completeness. And it's only struck me tonight while we were soaking about completeness being the number 7. Apparently, 7 is mentioned 700 times in the Bible. Even that is a perfect number, isn't it? 100 times the completeness. There's the 7 days of creation. There's the 7 spirits of God. I can't even read what that says. 7 years cycles, the Shemitah, we were talking about 2 weeks ago, and with the 7th year being this forgiveness of debt. 7 times 7 is the amount that Jesus says you should forgive somebody. And there's that story of being to get healing, to be actually dipped in the water 7 times, to actually be submerged in water 7 times. It's interesting that 7 spirits of God you don't hear much about, but it's worth digging into that if you want to. In Isaiah 11, 1-3, it talks about the 7 spirits of God and how Jesus has all those, and He is those, but also to push your boundaries a bit, how it starts off about wisdom, and wisdom is actually a being rather than just being a title and something worth having. So these are the jigsaw pieces we've got to try and put together. There's been some words recently. I've talked a lot about Tim Sheets and the developing word he's had since the beginning of March, but particularly about the host of heavenly angels, the host of heaven that's been released over the last few weeks to come and work with us as we come in line with God. That they're an extra group of angels that have been sent, that have not been sent before. God has told Tim Sheets that they're here now to make a big difference. Emma Stark, we've actually posted it today. It was talked about a couple of weeks ago by Trevor. Had this word. It's not a very good recording because I don't think she was ready for it. That's the impression you get. It's done on a phone from the congregation, the audience, let's say. But it's very much about worship as a sacrifice, worship and praise being the key to the next era, phase, however you want to call it. And then today, I'm going to read a bit from it in a minute. There's been a post by Veronica West from Australia. Now, if you come across Veronica West, God speaks to her all the time, and it's quite hard to keep up with the amount of words that she's giving. But there's some bits about the UK in there, but there's worldwide, and that's the thing that seems to be coming out. That even in specific words for nations, they're being released also to the whole world. So even though we're here tonight, I don't know where you are tonight, but we're here in the Sheffield region. it's the worldwide implications as well as how we react locally that's going to be important. There's many challenges at the moment. You'll hear in the word how that's coming along, but there's quite interesting parts in there about plumb lines, which Paul Keith Davis has spoken about in the past. There's, but in all of these different three people that talk about new eras, new kingdom eras, new. Actually, one group I know called that we've moved into a new time completely. And I will post the word onto Facebook after we're finished. But I want to read some section. I'm not going to read it all because there's a lot of international stuff in there, and it's a long word, but some very important points in there. She says she was looking out over a beautiful field, and then she sensed the presence of Jesus next to her. And she was. This is how she put it: being made aware of his presence, I heard him whisper, "The fields are ripe with harvest, and when the light of my glory rises, the darkness runs and hides. Watch and pray, for a divine uprooting, dismantling is on its way. See, for the rod of my spirit is now moving to stir up the stagnant waters. Watch what rises to the top, for out of the places of dormancy and darkness, so the putrid scum will come. The fires of my glory will fall on the waters to cleanse and to purify." As I heard those words, the nations of the earth came up before me, and suddenly I saw a massive whirlwind coming out of the heavens, and it began to move towards the nations. As I looked at the whirlwind, I heard these words: "The spirit of Elijah now comes in the whirlwind to gather and to scatter." Watch as the whirlwind of my spirit comes to disrupt and displace the kingdoms of darkness, and to destroy man-made structures and institutions that have become altars of idol worship. For a great upheaval shall begin to take place, as the whirlwind of my spirit moves to rearrange and reorder, for boundary lines shall be moved and shifted, as the landscapes of nations are changed, transformed, and reformed. Watch as my whirlwind of my spirit comes to turn things upside down and inside out. I laugh at the plans of man. I laugh at their governmental summits and political gatherings, as they discuss their grand plans for the future of my nations. For they have believed in their hearts that there is no God, and with their mouths have cursed the one that put breath in their lungs. I shall not be mocked, but I shall move suddenly, swiftly, and without restraint. And then there's a series of words for Canada, America, and then it goes on. For the self-appointed kings of the nations have been weighed and found wanting. Watch, for nations once united shall be divided and separated. Watch as nations are now under divine reconstruction. For even as the plumb line has fallen, so the sword of the Lord has fallen upon the nations. My hand of justice and righteousness shall divide and conquer. And there's a word for the nations of Africa. Then it goes on to say, I say, look to the United Kingdom, a nation on the threshing floor, for the winds of change are now blowing forth upon the land. A supernatural sifting and separation is taking place, for a time of great harvest is at hand, for a forerunner nation for the nations of Europe, a land caught in between, shall now cross over to the other side. There's another word for Australia, and it goes further on down, then it comes back to us. And to you, the United Kingdom, rebuild and restore the broken altars in the land, and watch as my fire falls. I say to you, nations, in the valley of decision, this is your Mount Carmel moment. A spiritual showdown is taking place. Watch as my harvest sickle flies in the midst of the mighty whirlwind. Watch as the giants fall, Watch as the giants fall, as an apostolic and prophetic movement rises. For now a new kingdom era is being birthed in the nations of the earth. And she says, blessings to you all. That's Veronica West. So you can see in there some of the stuff that we've been talking about for weeks, and other people have brought up. In fact, 2 weeks ago we had some bits and bobs. But it's like the pieces of the jigsaw are coming from all over the place. And the emphasis that Emma Starr puts on into the video that is posted on Facebook is that we must act. We can't ignore what God's saying. She extols musicians to be better, but she says you must act. You must. This better is not this sort of physical striving that humans do. It's moving into the Spirit and hearing Jesus, and just worshipping in a way like not before. Get our ducks in a row is another way of putting it, I suppose, and it's a call for purity and holiness. So that's what I think God was saying today about completeness, and the difficulty we've got is pulling the pieces together. But actually, the closer we get to Him, the more we worship, the more He'll reveal it. But encouraging that, as God basically rebuilds and restores broken down altars in the land, His fire is going to fall, and a spiritual showdown is taking place. You can almost sense that. So as the nation gets gripped by all sorts of things that's broadcast, I just sense it's upon us as this type of group of Christians that we belong to start to see what God's doing, saying, see how we can apply it to our regions, and where we actually are, because not everybody watching is in this area. I know. There's a comment here, because if you're watching online on Facebook, you can put a word. Jenny's put, thank you for faithfully bringing His word and the signs of the times that we're living in. There are so many signs. I think we'll just, if we watch the news with spiritual eyes rather than human eyes, we really will see stuff that's going, if you can even cope with the news, that is. But there is definitely signs of things shifting. But as the word says, the darkness is going to rise to the top, and it's probably going to stink a lot. And there's going to be a lot of fear in the nation, I believe. In the nations, there already is. But this is God at work, and the enemy wants to rise up. Just a reminder that Tim Sheets calls the enemy the forever loser, and that's the point. He's already lost. He's just having a thrash around. So thanks for being there. Remember, you can put comments on at any time, and people will join in and pick up on it. And any prayer requests can go on there too. And we'll gladly pray for any concerns of yours that are there. We pray that this next month would be a time. I pray right now this next month would be a time of clarity, and we would be more like Jesus in the sense that He only did what He heard the Father tell Him to do, or what the Father said. So let's look for the jigsaw pieces, and let's see if we can put, even for our own regions where we are, some sort of picture together. So thanks for being there. We'll be back next week. And then remember, the second Monday of the month, we will have a worship night, usually with Trevor, although actually we've got a worship leader here who's going to come along, I think, basically to enjoy it with us and get closer to God. But never know, I might be able to persuade him to join in at some time, because he's an amazing worship leader as well. So, but you're very welcome to join us online every Monday. I'm not off again till the end of August, beginning of September, so we've got a good run for a little while, unless God says to take a break, which is interesting. The internet just dropped at the last moment there.